Hi everyone, my name is Jason Frazer and I'm here to take you through our presentation today on how we embrace what we knew in a field that we didn't to achieve success. So this is the audience interaction part, which seems to be an issue today. Can I just very quickly get a show of hands for those of you who are here, if you've built and released a game, just raise your hands. If you haven't built and released a game, okay. If you work in the games industry, thank you. Thank you, audience participation guy. Thank you. And if you don't work in the games industry, we're off to a thank you. And then I've got one more question before we go. I want you to have a think about what your ultimate goal is for working in the games industry. And this will come back to later on when we're halfway through the presentation. So just have a think about what it is you want to achieve by working in the industry. Oh, right. So this is the agenda for my talk for the next about 12 minutes. I'm going to take you through the process that led myself and my company to get to Pocket Gamer Connects in Hong Kong and why any of this is important to you guys who are in attendance today. All right. So in the beginning, there was me. There wasn't really just me, but my name is Jason Frazer. I'm the founder of Dark Horse Digital. We are a two-person startup, two-person business startup, and we make games, specifically only one game at this stage, a card game called Bamboozle. And Bamboozle is based on a card game that my friends and I used to play all the way back in 1996 we first started playing. So way back when I was still going to university. Yes, I had university then. And it was an excuse for my mates and I to get together at the end of a long working week. It was either the end of a university week or a working week. And it was, like I mentioned, it was basically an excuse for us just to be together. And we would have these regular meetings pretty much every Friday, constantly for at least 3 or 4 years. And it was about 2001 where I thought to myself, if this is an opportunity for us to get together and stay connected and be with someone, then perhaps it's an opportunity for other people to do as well. So I pitched the idea to my friends and I said to them perhaps we could build a business around this game. And like I mentioned, I gave them the option for us to get together and build a business around it. My friend, Gail, she could see the opportunity or the potential in the idea. So we went ahead and started a business. So at that stage, this was the early foundations for our company, Dark Horse Digital. So why are we here? So I'd like to think that everybody here at Pocket Gamer Connects Hong Kong is here for one of two reasons. We either want to make and release a successful game, or we either want to build or grow a successful business in the gaming industry. And so with that in mind, I think that there are some benefits in seeing how other people end up getting to or achieving this particular goal in a number of different ways and how we can apply those learnings into what we do. So when we decided to make a business, we sat down and we went, well, how close are we to what we consider a traditional game development team? So what I'm just showing on the screen now is I'm making some very broad brushstroke generalisations around what we considered a traditional game development team was. And then we sat down and worked out what our skills were today. Us, there we go. So you can probably see when you make a comparison against what we thought was a traditional game development team and who we were, we actually couldn't be anything further from what we considered a traditional game development team was. We were actually much, much closer to what was considered a business startup. So we made the decision very early on that rather than try and be a traditional game and development team, that we would try and be a business startup and build a game as our product. I probably should have mentioned that I've got a presentation. At the end of my presentation today, I've got a link, a URL to the presentation. So if you want to take any notes or anything, I've got the URL at the end of the talk. So when we made the decision to effectively adopt a traditional startup approach, there's a methodology in the business startup world that says in order for you to be a successful business startup, you need to have 4 key skill sets. The first one is the hipster. So the hipster is the design social media person. You've got the hacker. So the hacker is the coder or the developer who makes your product. You've got your hustler. and the hustler is the leads, the salesperson. And then you've got a hound, and a hound is the researcher. So we were pretty confident we could cover 3 of these 4 skills, but there was one skill that we were very confident that we absolutely couldn't cover. Could you guess? You know me too well, Paddy. Yeah, there was no way in the world that we could make up the hacker part. So we obviously had a deficiency. So then we needed to go ahead and try and find a hacker. So where did we start? We started with our friends and family. We went back to them to see if there was anybody who had either the skills that we needed or were willing to come on the journey to build a business with us. And when we couldn't find that, we went ahead and we tried outsourcing. So again, this really dates me. Way back in 2010, particularly in Australia, app development was in its infancy and it was quite expensive. So we approached a local game development company there, and the outsourcing process was, like I mentioned, very expensive, and we didn't know a lot about the industry, so we made the decision that wasn't going to be an approach that we could take. So then we went and examined. Let me start again. Then we went back to our colleagues to see if there was anybody that we were either working with who had the skills that we needed to move ahead. We found some colleagues that I was working with who had the ability to make the game and were interested. So we went ahead and created a company. And we basically came up with the company, and we went about having an equity split based on the skills and the experiences that we brought to the company. And we did this for about 18 months. And we got to a point where everybody in the company was kind of moving in a different direction. So we sat down and we decided that it was going to be best to have a company buyout. So when we had the company buyout, it was essentially back to both myself and Gail. So we had to once again take restock of where we were at. And this was about 2 more years further down the track. So once again, we decided to try the outsourcing attempt. So we knew a little bit more about the industry. We had fairly comprehensive documentation because that was something that I was doing in my other job. So we approached 2 more Australian companies. The second company went broke. They went bankrupt. And the third company, they just weren't prepared to listen to what it was that we had to say. So that wasn't going to work for us long term. So once again, in our development process, in our journey to releasing a game, we were back to taking stock. So the first thing that we did was we sat down and we worked out what it was that we wanted to do and where it was that we wanted to go. And once we made that decision, I've animated my slide wrong. Okay. All right, there we go. That's what should have happened. Once we decided that we either wanted to be acquired as a company or we wanted to have our products available for licensing. And then from that decision, we worked out the approaches to get there. We knew we had to make an MVP. We knew that we had to release on other platforms. We knew we had to move into multiplayer. We wanted to move into esports, and that would eventually get us to our goal. Now, about this time, we also figured that it was important for us to embrace 3 fairly key items. First one was to embrace what it was that we did know. The second one was to learn what it was that we didn't know. And the third one was to effectively outsource the rest. All right, so we knew design. Both my business partner Gail and I were from a design background. We had quite strong design ideas. We also knew that our card game, we had to have a contemporary design. We needed to stand out. Business startups generally don't have a lot of money, so we needed to get noticed. And the easiest way for us to get noticed was to have a design that was clean, crisp, and something that people would want to download. We also knew that the card players were people who were typically fairly safe in what it was that we wanted to play. So if we had a design that was something that they would embrace, then we were kind of halfway to getting to where we wanted to go. We focused on 3 key elements. The first one was the playing cards. As I mentioned, we wanted to make sure that the playing cards, again, were familiar to our audience, but again, looked fairly new and updated. The second one was the icon or the logo, and this was something that our players, or our customers, I guess, was something that they were going to experience us for the first time when they go to a Google Play or an App Store. So it needed to sell our message. It needed to be clear around the game and make it, I guess, enticing around so that they wanted to download and play it. And the third one was the game. We needed to make sure that the game was a very clear design, that people would want to play it, and that it was something that they could move through very easily. We didn't want to give them an excuse to leave because they've obviously made the effort to want to download our game, so we wanted to keep them playing for as long as we could. We also thought it was important to leverage things as well. So like IP, as a startup, it was important for us to own all our IP and leverage our IP. So things like if we owned our playing cards, we could do things like print physical playing cards and generate a revenue source from that. We needed to make sure that our logo was something that we could use on merchandising like T-shirts and other things like if we wanted to, for example, in a crazy world, leverage our characters for animation, for example, later on. We needed to make sure that we owned all our IP around that. We also leveraged other existing resources like contest websites. So there are two websites called 99 Designs and freelancer.com that we leveraged as well. And you could put up a job on the websites and you would get hundreds and hundreds of iterations of the work that you were after for a very, very small fraction of the cost. So at the same time, we had an idea around the design that we wanted, and we had people who were presenting their designs, and we could do things like do A/B testing as well as we were getting designs up. We could post the designs on social media and ask people to choose and vote for things that they liked and they didn't like. So that was some resources that we could use very easily and didn't cost very, very much at all. So, the card design. So here are some examples of some of the hundreds and hundreds of card designs that we actually went ahead and went looking at, and they provided a basis of what it was that we were looking for. And the design that we're currently working with is the one that's in the bottom right-hand corner. So hopefully still has that sort of traditional look and feel, but fresh enough to make people think that it was something that they'd be interested in doing. The logo. Again, like I mentioned, we had hundreds and hundreds of different versions of the logo, and here are some examples, and you can kind of see the path of where it was that we started. I did a sketch on a post-it note on a desk at work, which is the one that you see in the top left-hand corner, and the one that we've got at the moment that's currently in the Google Play, and when we go to App Store next month, the logo that we're using is in the bottom right-hand corner. That's our current logo. It might change once we do a bit more testing, but hopefully it's sort of fresh and sells our game quite clearly. And then some of the examples of the table layouts that we ended up going with. So one in the top left-hand corner came from a designer on 99 Designs. The bottom one and the top middle one came from the companies that we worked with. The ones in the bottom middle were designs that I did. And then the current company, another company that we're using, are the ones in the top right-hand corner. And then the ones that we've got currently in our game in the Google Play Store are those in the bottom right-hand corner. So there's been a little bit of a progression working our way through. So then we needed to learn about things that we didn't know, and we didn't know much about our customers or our players. So we started with the card players, and what we found with card players were that they would play for significant periods of time. They were the audience that were most likely to download an in-app purchase, and they liked evergreen content. So evergreen content is just a game that they play over and over and over again. So for us, this was promising. So we went ahead and researched the rest of our target players. So for us, it was important to target both the 18 to 25-year-old Android users because they were such a large audience. They were low spenders, but they would play for a significantly long period of time. And if they liked something, that they would tell their friends, which was obviously important to us as well because we wanted to get the word out. The same with the 18 to 30-year-old Apple users. They were very similar to the 18 to 25-year-old Android users. They would play for a shorter period of time, but they would spend more money. And they too would tell their friends if they liked the game that they were playing as well. Again, getting the word out, getting us to be known virally, I guess. And the third market that we'll target, that we're moving towards, are the over 40-year-olds who play on laptops or desktops. And we found that these guys would play for significantly long periods of time. They would play between tasks when they were doing jobs at home, and they also had quite a high spend, and it was an opportunity for us to end up moving into multiplayer esports at a later stage. So all of these things that we were learning about our customers were getting us to where it was that we wanted to go. And then finally, we had to still outsource the rest. So we were still looking for a hacker at this stage. We still hadn't found one. And so we did things like apply for government grants in Australia. We were speaking to investors, and we upped our networking capabilities. We were going to more and more events. And at Pocket Gamer Connects in San Francisco in 2017, I met Paddy. And Paddy introduced me to Camos Games, who are based in Finland. And they liked what we were doing. They were looking for games to fill out their suite of products. They liked the fact that we had comprehensive documentation, so we had quite a comprehensive game design document and a number of other things, and they were very easy to work with. So for us, that was a benefit for us because we're easy to work with as well. So it was a fit. So after all of this time, we had found our hacker. Now, so why is any of this important to you? Well, we are living proof that you don't even need to be working in the games industry to be a success. We found that it was important to know your end goal, and then if you just work out ways to get to your end goal. You might consider adopting a startup mentality, saying very, very lean, and then perhaps considering if you even have the 4 skill business startup steps. If you don't, what is it that you can outsource? Can you do a skill swap? If you can just do the development side of things, perhaps you can find somebody else in a similar situation like us who didn't have the skills and could do potentially things for you. You could leverage and come up with a win-win situation. And perhaps one of the most important things that's probably not done enough is to celebrate and reflect on the wins. It doesn't matter how small they are. Because if you're either working in your own startup, if you've ever worked in any of those, you know that it's very, very difficult. And one of the few things that keep you going is celebrating the little milestones that you have. And this was very important to us. So how close are we to getting to where our end goal is? So last April, we released an MVP on the Google Play Store called BAM. We've done 2 updates. Next month, we'll release an iOS version. We own all our own IP, which is obviously important to us as well. Again, like I mentioned, so we can leverage the IP. BAM has been downloaded in 96 countries so far, so that's quite a key win for us. We haven't had the growth that we would want, I don't think anybody has the growth that they ever want. But the advantages for us is we've created quite a stable base, which allows us to continue having discussions with publishers and investors who will help us keep moving forward. And then just to finish with, I've just got a couple of motivational quotes which apply to where we were and what we've gotten to. So in 2001, if I'd have known it was going to take us 16 years to release a game, I might not have started. And back then, technology was different, and it seemed impossible. And it's not impossible, as Nelson Mandela has said, until it's done. So these are my details. As I mentioned, you've got the URL to a copy of the presentation. Please feel free to reach out to me if you'd like to at any stage. And I wish you all the best.
I lost faith in you guys, but do you wanna ask any questions?
No, good, excellent.
I lost faith in the audience already. Yeah, good. He's gonna reiterate the faith.
The answer is 42.
Sorry.
42.
I just see your report titled by the BI design. What do you mean by BI design?
Pardon? What's the question? Pardon?
Success, BI design. What do you mean BI?
Oh, by design. So the buy is 2. There are 2 of us in our team. And the design is obviously we came from a design background. So we focused on what it was that we knew. And in the field that we didn't know anything about the games industry, and we were still able to release a game. Yeah, there's only 2 of us. So there's 2 of us plus Camos Games who do the development side of things. So technically we're 3. So maybe we should have said Success Thrive. It just doesn't have the same.
Any other questions? If not, you have the contacts to go up and have afterwards. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, guys. All the best.